You're listening to Table Talks for Life, a Youth4Life podcast that prepares youth to be gospel-motivated voices for life. Be sure to stick around after today's live recording to find out how you can be engaged in upholding life too. Good morning. This is our Table Talk 101, the very first session in our series for this summer. It's called Setting the Table for Life. My name is Michelle Bauman, and I am the director of Youth4Life, unfortunately also recovering from laryngitis. So hopefully the sessions after this one I'll have my regular voice back. But I'm so glad you're joining us for our summer sessions. Typically we do chats for life, but this summer we want to go ahead and do something new. And we're going to talk about what our hopes are for setting the table and for Table Talk 101 in just a little bit. But I'd like to have our participants introduce themselves and share with you what they do at Youth4Life.
My name is Bonnie Poole. I am the Youth4Life. Actually, Michelle, I need to clarify what my actual title is because I think there's a discrepancy maybe on what's on the website and what's elsewhere. But I think I'm the Youth4Life Media Resource Assistant.
Correct. You are absolutely right.
Okay, the resource assistant. And I joined with that title, I believe, in March or April of this year. But I've kind of been with Youth4Life for a couple of years now. I met Michelle when I was a leader at Concordia, Wisconsin. I was a student there and led the club there for a couple of years. And then I ended up interning there the summer between my junior and senior year. And then I kind of stayed on part-time for a little while. And then Michelle found a spot for me. Now, I live in St. Louis right now. I moved there about 6 months ago after graduating from CUW in May of last year, already a year ago now, crazy. And I am married and have a 11-month-old son. He turned 11 months today.
Yay. And we love having you back on the team. There's actually it's kind of a theme today. You're going to hear about 2 Wisconsin girls, Concordia, Wisconsin. So, but let's go next to Corey, who does not come from Wisconsin.
I do not. No, I'm Corey Meyer. I'm the Youth4Life assistant. So I do a lot of things that Michelle delegates to me, which I love doing, and I handle all of the social media. So anything you see on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, I do a lot of the building and scheduling of those posts, and I love to do that. It's really fun to engage with youth that way. I am in Nebraska. I was born and raised here. I lived in Kansas City for a little while, so I did get out, and then I decided I missed it too much, so I moved back. I've been with Youth4Life for just over a year now, and I've just really enjoyed getting to know everyone on the team in this last year, and it's been really great to have time to dedicate to work, but also really enjoying the time with my family too, since I get to work from home. I've got 2 kiddos now. I've got an almost 2-year-old and a 4-month-old, so life is pretty busy between work and taking care of the kids and trying to maintain a healthy marriage with my husband, but we just celebrated our 4-year anniversary today. So very exciting on that front as well.
Oh, congratulations, Corey.
Yeah. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
All right. And last but not least, Kate.
Hi, I'm Kate Roberts. I'm the Youth4Life intern this summer. Today is my 3rd day, so I'm really just jumping into the deep end. But I attend Concordia, Wisconsin. I just finished my sophomore year there, and I'm studying nonprofit management. So I'm excited to be here.
Yes, we are excited to have you. So it's exciting to have a full team. We get that full team every summer when we bring on our intern and do lots of different things. Just in case anyone's wondering and they haven't met me. So I mentioned earlier, I am the director of Youth4Life. I live in Indiana. My husband is a pastor, and we have been here now for over 20 years, which is really shocking. When I married a pastor, I did not think I would live in one place for a long time. And my husband is very much a deep roots kind of guy, which has been a real blessing to our family. We have 2 sons. Nathaniel and Simeon. Nathaniel is 21 and he is married and heading to the seminary this fall, which we're super excited about. And our youngest son is 19, Simeon, and he is also a student at Concordia, Wisconsin. So there's lots of Wisconsin stuff going on here. I just have to say, though, I am not a graduate of Concordia Wisconsin. My husband and I were graduates of Concordia, Nebraska. So kind of call out to Corey in the Nebraska area. So, and I love all the Concordias. So I don't want anyone to listen to this and think, oh man, she's got a thing for Wisconsin, because all the Concordias are wonderful. So
yeah, and Nathaniel went to Concordia, Chicago, right? So I mean,
yes.
you've got that going too.
Yeah, neither of my sons went to my alma mater, but yeah, Concordia, Chicago, he and his wife both graduated from there this spring. So thank you for pointing that out, Bonnie. I try not to be like exclusive.
Right? Totally fair.
Excellent. Okay, so let's talk about what Table Talks is going to be about. Corey, you want to share what our vision was?
Yeah, so with Table Talks for Life, we were hoping to address some of the more current events type issues. With Chats for Life, we do that as well, but with the podcast recordings, those sometimes get pushed out later, and we try to cover more evergreen topics, inviting missionaries on, how we can interact with people in a variety of ways. But with Table Talks, we wanted to focus more on current events, focus on kind of what's going on in the news today, and then also just some of the other things that are going on. We'll talk about what's happened in the last year since Dobbs and the overturning of Roe v. Wade. We'll talk about, how we should care for others in a life-affirming way, and what culture is currently dictating, and how we as Christians and life-affirming Christians should interact with that. And we'll also talk about things like why our bodies are great, why they're gifts from God, how to interact with women who may be seeking abortions and how we can be there for them. We'll talk about some of the things that society has told us are just constructs, and just really getting into some of those topics that we don't get to talk a lot about in podcasts anymore, or that you may have questions about and are wondering, how can I address these issues and how can I have conversations with others? I don't know if Bonnie, you had anything to add to any of those topics, or anything that you're looking forward to this summer with that.
Yeah, I think one thing that we're looking forward to with this kind of format is just that we do the Chats for Life, where we have a speaker on, but this is just a little bit more informal, and we can kind of say whatever comes to mind. There's not just one speaker, so just to have be more conversational. I think it's also fun for us so all of us work remote, and so we don't actually see each other in the office every day, but we get to have a chance to come together and talk about the things that we find very, very important. I mean, it's our job, and we're all very passionate about these issues. So it's fun to be able to come together and just talk about them.
Yeah, just chatting and meeting people that are also like-minded. We're going to meet a lot of guests this year that will join us in the conversation. So I really hope that this is an opportunity for our listeners to get to know us as well, and to get to know Why for Life. The different types of topics that we address. Life issues aren't just at the beginning of life or at the end of life, but they are throughout. So I want to transition then to our next kind of question that I have for you. And, we're employed to have life conversations and to write about life issues and to build social media posts and those sorts of things. But what types of life conversations do you think are most common? Even before you joined Why for Life, what types of life conversations were coming up?
I'll go ahead and jump in. I think one for me that has really been prevalent over the last probably 2 to 3 years for my husband and I personally, we have a friend who is identified as transgender. And so just having the conversations, not necessarily with this person, but between my husband and I, about how we can continue to love him and uphold his life, even though he has decided that he isn't a man anymore and he doesn't want to identify that way. And then just how do we encourage others to also just continue to uphold his life and view him as someone created by God who just needs love and needs to be shown the gospel, and that he has a savior, and that is enough for him. He does not need to try to find his identity anywhere but Christ. And so that's one that's been really big in our house recently, is just kind of those conversations, and how do we have those conversations with each other and then with others who may not share our views on those things.
Yeah, identity issues are a hot topic, whether it's gender identity or just even in a woke culture, right? Where do we stand on different issues? Which groups do we belong to? I think we're seeing in society a tendency to join groups that are divisive, right? Or that are specifically made to make us different from someone else. And the gospel is really about bringing us together. It's really about uniting us in Christ, and reminding us who we are as part of the family of God. And so we have lots of opportunities to talk about identity today. What about you, Kate? What sort of conversations have you been involved in?
I think the most number of conversations about life I've had have been primarily about abortion. Probably something just to do with my age group as well, and also just the past couple of years, how prevalent that has been in the news and just on people's minds and hearts. So it's definitely been around abortion. And I would say also just kind of spiraling out of that would also be questions about suffering a lot, because just naturally with abortion comes questions about suffering and should we let people suffer and things like that. So I think those two topics are the biggest ones that I've been a part of.
Yeah, and suffering is a hard one, right? I mean, nobody wants to suffer, right? When you talk about the God-pleasing approach to suffering, you're definitely not speaking the norm of society, right? You're not speaking what people want to hear, and so that's hard. But you're right; it is tied into a lot of life issues. What about you, Bonnie?
I would agree with Kate, actually Kate and Corey. I think since Dobbs, since last June, that ruling coming out, I think that's just been so big on, and it's anyone will talk about it, it's just so prevalent in our culture. And at the same time, I think the gender identity stuff is increasingly common. And what's interesting is I noticed that the conversations about gender identity tend to be, we say life issues are people, and those always are, like, because people are willing to take that identity onto themselves. Whereas when you're having a conversation about abortion, usually a person isn't saying, well, I've had an abortion and I think that's a really good thing, So that is one thing that I think is kind of hopeful about the gender identity conversations, is that it's very personal. And so it's much easier to show compassion and love, because usually you're talking to someone who identifies that way, or it's centered around a person instead of just around the issue of abortion, which wasn't really the question, but I would say, yeah, abortion and gender identity.
Yeah, you make a good point there. It's true. It's abortion is one of those issues that, I mean, we don't know necessarily if we're talking to someone who's had an abortion or loves someone who's had an abortion. And you're right, life issues are people, right? They're not just issues, which is why we care about them, because we care about people, because God cares about people, because he values them as individuals and as his own children. And I think you're right, Bonnie, that when someone's struggling with gender identity, that's more obvious and very personal. And we see this transition at times that takes a matter of, months, weeks, months, years. And we see all of the extenuating circumstances or how this affects their relationships with others. And so you're right, it is a very hopeful opportunity to intervene and to intercede for them, but also to uplift them and to love them. So I think you've nailed it, right? Abortion. One of the other abortion and gender, one of the other topics that's come up a lot in my circle is kind of the idea of marriage and family, and how that, how divorce has created some life issues for individuals. And then, how do you find a good spouse? What do you look for? I think so often in the youth that I speak to, maybe they don't have those role models, or they don't have a concept of what good marriage looks like. And so that's a conversation that comes up a lot when I'm out at conferences. So
Well, and I think too with that, Michelle, even people who are married, looking to either break those, I would say, generational traumas, to use a popular phrase now of, well, my parents, they were married, but it wasn't a happy marriage. How do I have a happy marriage now that I'm in that stage? So I think that one's important definitely too, is the marriage and family conversation, especially now that people want to have those healthy relationships and not just let them deteriorate over time.
Yeah, I'm wondering, so we've been involved in some life conversations. We have some common topics. What do you think is the best way to prepare for those life conversations? Because some of the ones you mentioned happened before you came to Wife for Life. So it's not like it came about because of your job, right? Because of your vocation with Wife for Life. So how would you suggest others prepare, or how do you personally prepare to be a gospel motivated voice for life when you encounter a life issue?
I would say Lutherans for Life and Wife for Life do exist to help to prepare people for just this. So not just to, give a banner ad for us, but those kinds of, there are so many resources out there that are meant to prepare you for conversations like this. So first of all, expect that the conversations will happen, because we know that people are very passionate about these issues on both sides. And then have answers prepared for them. So especially for the most common life issues, which we just talked about. So you want to know some common statistics on how common abortions are, and where certain things are legal, and then have some good arguments for why you think abortion is wrong, and especially be equipped with a gospel motivated answer. So not just saying, well, abortion is murder. Well, abortion is murder, and that is a strong reason why we are pro-life, or for life. But there's a more persuasive and gospel-motivated answer that we can give. So, along with that would be reading God's word and having scriptural reasons that you can provide people with for the hope that you have within you.
1 Peter 3, right? There you go. Kate, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that I try to do. First thing that I want to point out that I've noticed is, like, people notice when you are bold in your speech and when you are living out your convictions. And so even when you're not actively having these life conversations with people, when they know things that you believe, they naturally observe how you are treating other people, how you are interacting with them on other conversations too. And so I think that's something that's important, is making sure that we're living out a godly life and living out our convictions in a way that is God-pleasing, but also other people are picking up on that and noticing your speech and other conversations too, and not just life conversations. So I think that's one thing that's important. I also think just adding in as like a regular part of your prayer life, of knowing that these conversations are going to come up, and just praying regularly, like, hey, God, when these conversations come up, help me to be prepared and help you guide my words and make them clear. And also that these conversations are honoring to God too as well. So I think that's like some of the big things that I do. And just like Bonnie said, like trying to stay updated on your knowledge of life issues and being prepared for opposition or just regular conversations about it. But I think it's also okay to not know the answers to every question. Like Bonnie said, that's why we have so many resources that you can turn to. And that also keeps your conversation human. You don't want to come in as someone who knows everything. So I think that's another important aspect of it.
Right. What about you, Corey?
I think both of those are definitely things I try to do. I think after what Bonnie said too is, like, we've got resources at Lutherans for Life, but looking at others, whether it's from a Christian perspective or from a secular perspective, just understanding what is out there and available. So either on social media, following accounts that either, back up your beliefs or challenge your beliefs a little bit, so you understand how to have those conversations. And then I think too, just having the regular conversations with people in your life, so so you're able to have those conversations when it might be an uncomfortable situation. If you're at the March for Life and someone comes up to you and is like very pro-abortion, you don't want that to be your first your first practice having those for life conversations. So I think having practice conversations at home with your parents or with your friends, things like that, definitely help when it comes to having those tough conversations out in the world. And then, like I said too, just having those things that you follow on social media, so that you can continue to be kind of up to date on what's going on and what other people are saying, because not everyone comes from the gospel motivated perspective. So seeing how other people are responding to things like abortion or gender issues or marriage and family, and how think about how you can be having those conversations just constantly rolling through your mind.
Yeah, I think that's great. And just to build off the conversation piece, have a conversation with your pastor too, have conversation with other Christians. How do we look at life issues from a Christ-centered approach? If every life is valuable, then is the answer to life issues death? Is the answer an elimination of life? And clearly the answer is no, right? So it's good to know where you stand as a Christian. It's good to know where God's word stands, and then have that conversation about, so how do we put this into practice, right? How do we talk about this? And having those conversations in your home or with your friends, or, with your pastor, with your Christian teachers, with your Christian professors, that's a great place to start. One of the things, obviously, like Bonnie said, read your Bible. Kate said, pray, ask the Holy Spirit to guide you in those conversations. These are all definitely things I would say, numbers 1, 2, and 3, right? The other things, listen to some podcasts, right? So when I'm driving, I do a lot of traveling. I listen to, again, faith-based podcasts. These are good Lutheran podcasts that are going to speak, or other faith-based connections to life issues, and, see what they're saying, see how they're handling an issue, and then think critically, is this what I believe too? And that can be really encouraging as well, just to know that you're not the only one out there. You're not the only person who believes this way, and you might pick up some good tips for how to speak about an issue that maybe you don't have experience with. And that kind of brings me to the last thing. And I'm older than all of the people on this call. So I have what I would call life experience, in addition to, the years. But I think, the more that we are engaged in our vocations, the more we experience opportunities to uphold lives. Whether that's as a mother or a wife or a friend or a coworker or a classmate or a roommate, God is going to place people in your life that need to have their lives upheld. And you also will at some point need to have your life upheld. And I feel like, not just feel like, but I know from my life experiences, there are times when I come into contact with someone who's going through a life issue, and I can draw from those perspectives, those experiences, when maybe I went through that life issue or a friend of mine did, and what was helpful then, right? So I think the more that we engage with others and we serve others as Christ has intended for us to do, right? Through our daily vocations, the more we understand what is needed, whether physically, emotionally, and definitely spiritually, when we engage in a life issue. So any thoughts about those things?
I would completely agree. And what came to my mind was the experience of having my child was one of the most eye-opening things too. I have said, for many years, oh, we want to help the woman. So in the example of abortion or unwanted pregnancy, or unexpected pregnancy, but then what does that mean? Like, what aches and pains is she having along the way? What medical complications might she have? How many doctor's appointments will you actually be driving her to, if that's your intention? Those kinds of things. I knew in theory, and but when you actually live it, and then of course the whole lovely postpartum experience, So just that was very eye-opening to me. I have so much more compassion and understanding than I did before for what that is like on the kind of physical and even an emotional side, but also the idea like how much of a sacrifice it truly is to become a mom. I'm not saying, oh, I'm such a wonderful person, but my life is completely different. And it is a big thing. If I was so overjoyed, and we wanted our child, of course, and it was kind of anticipated. So it wasn't a huge, I mean, it was still a big adjustment, but just to know how much someone's life, their expectancy of how their life is going to go might be changing when they suddenly find themselves in an unexpected pregnancy. So it's a very long answer just to say that absolutely life experience can help shape how you approach life issues as you experience them yourself.
Yeah, and I go ahead, Corey.
I was to say, I also, being a young mom, definitely agree with Bonnie in that, the postpartum phase especially, I think we are always there to uphold the woman during the pregnancy, but we just kind of forget, oh, well, I don't need to check in now that she's had the baby. Everything's going great. And so I just wanted to, add to that too, of like, don't forget about the mom after she's had the baby. It's just as hard once there's the new human out of the womb than it is when, baby is still in the womb. So definitely life experience wise, I 100% agree with Bonnie that your perspectives change once you take on those new roles and vocations.
Yeah. And just from my experience, postpartum it was harder than, I had some scary, I had some scary experiences carrying both of my children, some difficult experiences, but once they were born, yeah, the emotional, the hormonal, the up all night, the postpartum is a lot harder. And you're right, Bonnie, it does, for those of us that want to support others, it does engender compassion and the ability to relate, right? Especially to a mom that maybe didn't want initially to bear a child, right? And so we do have compassion and maybe can understand when we really do need to step in and help and encourage and those sort of things.
And on the other side of that, I also see the gift of life in a whole new light, so not only do you understand the struggles, but you also have the insight to really say, like, you have no idea how wonderful this will be. Like, you just are so much more motivated to do all those things to uphold their lives so that they feel able to have that baby.
Yeah, I remember the morning after I had a emergency C-section with Nathaniel, and I remember waking up and watching him, and I looked at my husband and I said, my world, it just turned over. Like you before you have a baby, you are so it's so easy to be focused on yourself, right? And your own needs and maybe the needs of your husband. But again, your husband doesn't necessarily need you to feed him and change his diaper, right? He's not crying out for whatever it is that the baby needs. But I remember my world flipping. And I have this very vivid memory of it happening. And, I thought I was self-sacrificing, and I knew what real love looked like and those sorts of things. And I did, but babies change that. They change your world in a really wonderful, sacrificial way. So sorry, Kate, this is something you get to look forward to.
Yeah, I was going to say, Kate, we're just preparing you for what's to come down the road.
Yes.
So, okay, we kind of got off on how wonderful babies are, but that's not bad on a 4Life podcast, right? So I have one more question for you. And that is, which podcast, if you look at our lineup, which podcast are you most looking forward to for this summer session?
I have so many favorites, it's hard to pick just one. Like, the topics are all so good.
I think I am really looking forward to the sidewalk counseling podcast because I'm hoping this summer to start. I have never sidewalk counseled myself thus far. I've done lots of like praying outside of abortion clinics, and so I have had conversations with people, but never as an official sidewalk counselor. So anyway, this month I'm hoping to start shadowing a couple sidewalk counselors who work with Coalition Life here in St. Louis. So they go over to the Fairview Heights Planned Parenthood in Illinois where there are abortions done. And I'm just really excited to learn in preparation for that podcast. And then I believe the guest on that is that Rachel from Coalition Life. So she is wonderful, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what she has to say.
Awesome.
Okay, I still can't pick just one, but I will make myself pick just one. I think I'm really looking forward to, like I said, a lot of the big conversations that we've had in our house are around identity. And so I think the ones that we're going to talk about, sex and gender and like what's great about my body, those things, I think just so that I can, continue to strengthen my arguments, but also understand where others are coming from when they struggle with those identity issues, just because you don't always have those conversations. It's hard to say, so why do you feel like you don't fit in your body? Or what do you see as, problematic, in air quotes, they're problematic. Just because, we all struggle, we all have our insecurities, but being able to better understand and better have those conversations, I think is something that I very much want to understand and just get an idea from our experts, how do you have those conversations and how do you uphold lives when you are struggling to understand the struggles that someone is going through?
Yeah, I think mine is the same as Corey's. I'm really looking forward to the sex and gender one. I think like we kind of touched on earlier, like it's just been such a relevant topic recently. And it feels like it's just being shoved in your face everywhere. So, and it's hard to discern, what is the truth about this and how do we speak the truth about this in love, and from a Christ motivated perspective as well. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, I love the ones you've chosen, but I'm going to go a different direction. And we have two podcasts that are scheduled that are called What's on the Table. And basically, we will be talking about the latest life issues in the news. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. We don't get a chance very often with Chats for Life to talk about something that's just happened, right? Because we plan that out so far in advance. So I'm really excited about being able to do that. And we do some of that on What About Mondays, but we don't record What About Mondays because we make it a conversation where youth can ask questions, right? So we want it to be a safe place for them to do that. But this will be great, I think, for the four of us to talk about some of those things that are happening in life issues that are happening in America today, right? So I'm very excited about those, but a lot of good ones coming up. So
I'm really looking forward to those as well. I think it's just hard with how fast news moves. It's just hard to even keep on top of things, and it's all coming at you so fast you hardly even have time to really think about, oh, where do I stand on this? How does that shape what I believe? And I think it'll be good to just sit down and digest some of that.
Yeah. Any final comments, ladies?
I'm just overall very excited for this podcast series, and I hope that it is so helpful to our youth and anyone who listens, just that they understand better some of the topics if it's something they had questions about. And I think it, for me, will be a really great way to think about the life issues that, we talk about a lot, but maybe don't get to have conversations about in public a lot.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us on our first episode of Table Talk 101, Setting the Table for Life. We are so excited that you joined us, and we hope that you come back and tune in next week for our next Table Talk.
Thanks for joining the Y4Life team for today's Table Talk for Life.
We hope you're better equipped to address today's life issues and uphold the people God has placed in your path. Be sure to check out our programs and resources at y4life.org or email Michelle at y4life.org to find out more about how you can be a gospel-motivated voice for life. And we hope you'll join us next time right here at Youth4Life Podcasts.